Thank you so much for tuning into my channel. My name is Dr. Connie Chung. I have an extensive educational background. I have a bachelor's degree in psychology, master's in nutrition, a doctorate in physical therapy, been a clinician for over 25 years, as well as board certified in Institute of Functional Medicine in functional medicine. And I'm a ERYT certified at the 500 hour with Yoga Alliance. All that being said, I utilize yoga as a specific tool to help you to regulate your nervous system, to really empower you, to really reach in to your own essence and your healing power from within, to heal from any kind of symptoms, whether it be physical, mental, and emotional, as well as chronic illnesses. I believe all the answers are within you, that we have a biochemical capacity and the ability to heal our own bodies if we can align from within, inside out. That's what we do here. Welcome, and I can't wait to get to know you better. Hey everyone, so I'm so excited to be here. I'm so glad you're here. I know many of you couldn't make it to this live session, but know that we're going to be having watch parties in the evenings, so you'll have access to it. If you've got friends who wants to watch, who's not into social media, that's all good. We've got a landing page with all the videos at the end of the workshop available for those of you who signed up. So we're all good. I just want to introduce myself. My name is Dr. Connie, and I've been a physical therapist for over 20 years. And I started to practice yoga back when it was not popular. It was only available through VHS and DVDs, and I learned from the best even back then. I'm from Los Angeles, California. So even back then, even though California was so progressive, it was really hard to find a yoga studio at that time. So anyway, I'm super flexible, and so for over 25 years of practicing and then going through physical therapy school, learning all about the therapeutic exercises and like in-depth anatomy training, I picked up yoga, Bikram yoga, hot yoga in 2005. At the same time, I picked up Pilates teacher training as well. And I went through 2 different master trainings in Pilates because I love the core concept so much. And then I went through Bikram, and then I was an avid fan of Bikram for a very long time. And then I picked up Ashtanga because it gave me the strength and the muscular mobility that I needed to really be aware of my my body. And I really didn't. And being Asian, I thought I wasn't able to produce muscles or create muscles in my body until I found Ashtanga. But then Ashtanga kept creating these aches and pains in my body. And I realized my hypermobility in my joints was creating instability, so much so that it was affecting my soft tissue. That's when I learned to really tune in and really drew in the principles of Pilates into the yoga practice, and it literally transformed my body. Now I can proudly say I've got muscles, I've got tone in areas where I didn't think I was able to have them. The way I practiced yoga prior to not really understanding the awareness is that I was really relying on my flexibility. I was hanging out on the end range of my joints, and because I'm hypermobile, when I go into the end range of my hard bony alignments, that provided me with the stability. So I really never really needed the muscular activation, but I learned over time that that's super important. So it was really good to marry the principal concepts with the Pilates system, with the yogic practice to produce now what I call the alkaline method. It's a framework of how the body is designed to work. I see a lot in the social media world all about crazy postures, and you know, ego gets the best of all of us, I think, in yoga in classes, because even me, it's all about the external input of what it ought to be versus what it should feel like in my body. So back in 2012, I created this healing yoga studio, which now has evolved into the Alkaline Wellness Center, incorporating all realms of yoga and healing modalities together. So I love marrying the Eastern philosophies and then the Western sciences, because I really do believe there's always the yin to the yang, and we need a full spectrum understanding to really utilize the power of yoga in our bodies. What I will tell you is I've been around the block quite a bit. I've been around the world, around the States, to a lot of yoga studios just out of curiosity. What I find is that a lot of the teachers are very in tune with their esoteric practices of different types of yoga, but the real anatomical principles were really lacking. It was lacking in my program. It was lacking in a lot of the programs that are out there being touted as the best. And they do produce great instructors. And I don't know, I just want you guys to think about, what does it mean to be a great yoga instructor? Because if yoga is a healing modality, I feel it's a huge responsibility, us as a yoga teacher, to be able to help those students heal versus causing injury. Why I started this work many years ago in creating my own yoga teacher training program is because, one, I barely got any anatomical understanding in my Ashtanga yoga teacher training. It was touted as one of the best in Atlanta. And two, all my colleagues that were practicing yoga at the time, especially Ashtangis, I knew that they were going against the principles of anatomical knowledge and understanding that I knew from a physical therapy standpoint to cause injury. And more of them were coming to me to get therapy because of, in certain instances, irreversible injuries that they were causing in their body. So I cringe whenever I go into a very massive yoga class. And currently, I'm enrolled with Asheville Yoga Center for my 500-hour teacher training. I'll be done in a couple of months here. And over the time that I've been doing in-depth Kundalini training, to Yoga Nidra, to power yoga, a little bit more in-depth therapeutic yoga, and all the other realms of yoga that were very esoteric in nature, people lost. I was looking to the left and the right of me with all these yoga teachers that are renowned, and everybody were nursing injuries, and they believed so much that this yoga practice was supposed to be healing that nobody was really talking about that. So that piqued my interest into thinking, wow, in our yogic world, we really need responsible teachers to be able to be knowledgeable enough. Because here's what I can tell you as a physical therapist: over the years of going to different studios, I learned that a lot of my co-students that were taking the classes were doing yoga in lieu of physical therapy because they believed the healing effects of yoga so much. But little did they know, it may feel good for a while to move in certain ways, but the resiliency of our muscular fibers with the alignment principles that's necessary for us to really understand was lacking so much that eventually, long term, I was seeing a lot of injuries. And many longtime yogis are not properly activating their muscles, and so they never get stronger, right? We have flexibility. So the whole spectrum of creating strength requires stability in your body, right? Your foundation needs to be established. In order for you to have flexibility also, you need stability, and you need to be aware of where your center line is and where you're anchored and where you're pulling away from. And understand within our body, there's the external control and then there's the internal control. Today, we want to really delve in to the deep musculatures of our core. Because really, when we talk about prana, right, chi, the energetic force, in the yogic realm, we've got pranas, that's typically we think about pranayama like it's the breath work, but we really have to name different facets of pranas that exist in our body, and it really aligns with some of the neurological principles that we learn. For example, Vayana. Vayana is the whole pranic force in our body. Udana is really the expression and the communication, right? That's the force here at the throat center. And then we've got the prana here, circularly, like towards our rib cage. And that's where the breath is, right? And then there's a samana near the core. That's where everything sort of pulls together. And then we've got the apana, which is supposed to be rooting and grounding prana, which is supposed to be helping us with elimination. That's where all our sexual organs are, the defecation, urination, all the elimination principles. And so this aponic region, the pelvic region, needs to root us, right? I call that the anchoring principles in the alkaline method. You'll learn more about that on day 5 of the training. So let me give you a little bit of an overview of what we're going to do for the next 5 days. Today is going to be all about core education, really looking at the samanic principles as it relates to the pranic principles of the breath and how that helps us to be in tune with our apana prana, which is the pelvic floor. Okay, that's today, and I'm going to teach you ways to really understand global movements as well as the local movements and how to really honor your vertebra or your spinal column and the mobility that's there to really root you down to provide you with the foundation for the core to be active to support the grand motions that's required in yoga. That's today. And tomorrow is going to be all about safe alignment, utilizing and building on what we learned today about the core foundation, anatomical foundations of our core. And we'll learn a little bit more about learning how the alignment principles to create longevity in our joints and how to really activate certain muscles around big joints of our body, the ankle, the knee, the hip, the shoulder girdle, and then of course the whole spine. The third day is all going to be about creating flexibility with stability, and then also eliminating any compensatory, dysfunctional muscular memory that we tend to carry in our bodies. And the last day, the fourth day is going to be all about the gap in the yoga industry. And what I'm seeing as the gap is going to be the huge opportunity for you guys as elevated teachers who can stand with super knowledge enough to really do good in the world, right? And then the fifth day is all going to be about the framework of the alkaline method. And I'm going to kind of walk you through sort of this framework, both internal and external realm of how that applies to not only your physical body, but your emotional body, your mental, as well as your spiritual body, and how they all connect so that you can be integrated and whole as a whole being that you are. So, yes. Some of you can't hear me, so I'll try to yell and speak louder, but I think it's because the phone is a little further away from me, but I'll try to do better. So I hope that was helpful for you as we explore. I'm just going to refer to my notes. If you guys have the workbook that you guys printed out, highly recommend that you pull it out, because these are some principles, like laying out the foundation enough so that you can be a great teacher. Here's something that I do know. I've been meeting a lot of 200-hour yoga teachers that are really secretly very much not confident enough to teach a class. A lot of the times at 200-hour, all you know how to do is sequence a yoga together, right? And you know how to pull all the sequences together to create a class to be able to teach. And that's the extent of it. You never really learn in a 200-hour program a lot of the anatomy principles, the philosophies of yoga. There's so much more. And I feel that 200 hours should be like 500 hours to provide you with the basis to sort of build and not only be a good teacher, but getting it in your body. One of my yoga nidra teachers taught me that you can't share anything that you can't teach something you have not experienced. So yoga is all about your healing journey first and foremost, so that you can share that with your students. That's how it should be. Today, I want you guys to really, really adapt this beginner's mind. Learn all about your physiology in the core, where this is the integration or the foundation, and we call this the powerhouse in Pilates, where we are going to really have you tune into your core musculature. So before I go any further, let me talk about fast twitch versus slow twitch fibers. So postural muscles, like the core muscles that I'm talking about, it's the deeper layers of our muscles that provide stability in our posture and provide stability as a foundation for all movements of our limbs. Okay, that's number one. And those muscles are designed so that they can be turned on when you're up against gravity to kick on, to have this decompressive effect in your spine. Spine is where the chakra system is, you guys, right? And that's where your central nervous system goes down to your spinal column. There's the nerve roots that exit the spine. If you guys don't know about this, there's anatomical lessons that I created over the last couple of weeks. You can be tapped here. Please reach out to your concierges or your accountability partners. We've got a couple of them here. They'll be tagged in this post. Reach out to them for those types of lessons so you can better understand how our central nervous system works, our skeletal system, as well as our muscular system. So having said that, let me talk about the core muscles. But before I go any further, the core muscles, as they are postural muscles that are deep within, because we live in such a sedentary world today, I don't know about you, but everybody who's a yoga teacher probably has a secondary job because, we just do, right? And that requires a lot of flexion. Life is flexion, as I say. And we don't really talk about proper posture, and we're always hunched over in our computers, and everything sort of lags throughout the day until you come into a yoga class, and that's what your students are doing. So sedentary life creates this dysfunction or this inhibition to connect to the core musculatures of our spine or of our core. So much so that today you're going to learn ways to connect with them again, so you have this mind-body connection with those deep layers of the muscles. Because most people think that core musculature is all about the six-pack muscles. Now, those are just external muscles that flexes the spine. Does nothing for spinal stability. I've had triathletes, football players, I've had weightlifters come in because they've desiccated or knocked out their disc so much from lifting all the external muscles without having the stability inside. So really think about this and get the principles down. So the four muscles of the core down at the base is your pelvic floor. I did another anatomical lesson on the pelvic floor, so that can be tagged here as well. Lots of muscles down there. We've got 3 holes, right? You've got where the urine comes out, and if you're a woman, we have the vaginal opening, and then towards the back, we've got the rectum. We've got sphincters that closes mainly, and the pelvic floor sort of serves as something that monitors our intra-abdominal pressure, right? So this whole concept of pistoning, right? And up at the top, we've got the diaphragm. So when we inhale, let me do this. When we inhale, both of them go down, and pelvic floor goes down to meet the intra-abdominal pressure. And not only that, because up here, we've got the lungs, right? Pranic force. We've got the lungs to really draw in the air. And so diaphragm and the pelvic floor needs to descend like a piston. And then when we exhale, We need to expel all the air out of the lungs, so our diaphragm goes up, as do our pelvic floor. Pelvic floor has to meet the needs of the intra-abdominal pressure. Now, if you're a woman and you've had episiotomies or some C-sections, a lot of women have no inkling as to what's happening down there. And as a women's health physical therapist, I see a lot of organ prolapses, urinary incontinences, sexual dysfunctions, pain, all sorts of things. So those are things you need to pay attention to when you're working with the core musculature. Really learn to pull up the pelvic floor and have the ability to both contract as well as to relax. That's up at the top in this dimension. But now let's talk about the transversus abdominis. That wraps on the side and it goes back, right? That's the deeper muscles of our core. And that holds our posture up on the front side, and it's deeper than the rectus abdominis, and that links the lower rib cage down to your pelvis, and it spans towards the back. And on the back side, in the deep layers on each side of the spinous process, which is the boniness that you feel of your spinal column, along each side, deepest layer is the multifidi. Primary role of this multifidi muscle is to decompress the spine. So it should turn on, but oftentimes a lot of people have paraspinals, if you feel your back muscles, paraspinals that are overdeveloped and rectus abdominis that are hyperdeveloped, because we do a lot of like sit-ups, right? Because we want to work out the external muscles without being mindful of the deep inner muscles to hold you stable. That's what creates a lot of instability. But we've got strength without stability, and that's a very slippery slope that you don't want to be going down, right? So please remember that. And I'm going to kind of come back so that you guys can fill your worksheets out. So I said, highly sought after yoga instructors can put together the most intensive and creative sequences. But that's not what makes a great yoga teacher, right? A great yoga teacher will be able to understand the body and understand the needs of the students to create a sequence that can be healing for them. And oftentimes, if you're working the front or a frontal chain, you need to equally work the posterior chain to create symmetry and balance in the students. And you're able to see that visually to accommodate them to provide the needs of your students in the class, is what I believe to be making a great yoga instructor. So our bodies are designed to move a certain way, and our our flexibility, range of motion, and musculature, as well as our skeletal system, it's got a lot of genetic predisposition set in. Some people have tighter capsules around their hips. Some people have tighter capsules around the shoulders. A lot of us have adaptive shortening on the front side versus the back. We've got pain inhibiting certain contractions in our muscles. So in a yoga class, a lot of the students are coming with a lot of dysfunctions. And I see, as a clinician for over 20 years, what I see a lot is a repetitive injury. We've got what's called a tipping point of injury, right? Repetitive injury can happen over a long haul, and you'll be okay until you're not. And a lot of my patients would always say, but I didn't do anything. Nothing I did was, out of the ordinary from what's ordinary for them, but they've lost the ability because they've crossed that tipping point, and then they've gone into that injurious mode where they tore something. But it was repetitive injury over time that caused that and set that up as, to have that injury. So we want to make sure that when we're foundations of anatomy now going down, knowing your anatomy is essential in helping you to maintain longevity of your joints. Okay, that's number one, especially in your spine. If you can have longevity of your joints in your spine, and if you can turn on your core, what I'm going to be teaching you today, it's going to safeguard all the other joints of our body. And we'll talk more in detail about the alignment principles tomorrow, but today's all about the foundational anatomy, right? There are structural genetic limitations to the range of motion in each joint. Range of motion is one of those things. It can be skeletal, it can be muscular, and it can be connective tissue like ligaments and cartilages, but also it can also be fascial, right? I put up a fascial YouTube video that I found because, again, we'll feel the fascial stretch long before we'll feel the muscular stretch. But most of us think it's the muscles, but it's the fascial stretch that's a lot more receptive and it tends to tighten up. And what's more important, just a little caveat here, the health of your fascia or myofascial tissue is very sensitive to your diet. So very acidic foods will make you very tight the next day. Okay, just a little something to remember. Laws of physics apply to your body. So it's in our best interest to have optimal biomechanics for efficiency of movement in all that we do. And that's done by proper activation of the core to maintain proper alignment, but you need to know what they are, right? For you to get it in your body so you can experience and master this mind-body mastery, then you can then teach that to your students in a way that makes sense for them. Okay? And the sequence of muscular firing is super important. When we're up against gravity, we need the multifidi, the TA, to fire. And when we're breathing, we need the pelvic floor to meet the intra-abdominal pressure just like that. That needs to fire first and foremost before we work all the other external muscles. Okay? And the core should be the one that's first to fire, like I said. And we tend to have compensations in our body due to malalignment, or such as overactive pecs, weakened shoulder retractors, and overactive rectus abdominis, which indicate a weakened core. Weak core, you guys, this is how we are, right? When this is strong, we automatically fix all the other alignment issues, first and foremost. So my number one go-to is all about the core in my physical therapy practice. And that's just does a number on setting up everything, setting up the body so that my patients can have success in all their sports or whatever else that they do. So like I said, the four muscles of the core are transversus abdominis, multifidi on the back, pelvic floor on the bottom, and diaphragm up at the top. Okay, remember that. And because we live in a sedentary world, right, hunched over the computer all day, we've lost the connection between our neurological system to our postural muscles, so much so that they don't turn on, you guys. And it takes a couple of visits with me in my low back patients or knee patients or hip patients, which ultimately can end up with joint replacements. They've lost connection with the core so much so that this is where I have to start. And it takes a couple of visits to tune them in. But remember, those are the students that are coming to your yoga class, you guys. These dynamic gross motor movements, and they're being flexy compared to the other students where our ego's at play in a class where they're trying to go after the most flexible student in your classes, and they're doing so much damage to their body without even knowing it. So that's something that you need to remember. So we're going to be using the breath to facilitate the activation of the core today, and I'm going to have you on your back. And I just want to make sure you guys understand how to activate your core. So first, we're going to lie on our backs, and we're going to find our core by breathing. So go ahead and come onto your backs, you guys. Come onto your backs. And I'm going to go ahead and show you to bring your arm, full length of the arm down on the mat, right? And I want you to breathe in through your nose. And as you do so, feel how you arch your back and how the pelvis tips forward. And when you exhale, I want you to exhale out through your mouth like Darth Vader fogging a mirror. And exhale until you can't go anymore, right? Inhale and exhale. Just feel how that feels. Inhale, feel free to place the thumb and index around the ribs, and exhale. And feel the rib cages drawing down and in. And as you do that, see if you can isolate the core by not allowing the shoulders to ride up toward your ears, but pull them down, okay? Inhale. Really expand your ribs and exhale. And keep the back of your head down, chin slightly tucked. So this time I want you to lay down your full length of the arm down onto the mat. So if you need to, those of you who have forward shoulders, like the humerus is going forward, I want you to see if you can externally rotate your arm by turning your palm side up, right, toward the ceiling, and press the back of your shoulders down, but pull the shoulder blades down toward the pelvis, and so that you can engage them to get them out of the way. And I'll show you this up against gravity, how the pulling down of the shoulder blades tends to create elongation of the spine in the opposite direction, okay? Inhale, arch your back. Exhale, pull down, 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 down. Inhale, arch your back. And exhale. If you do not feel your muscles kicking in, you can't really feel the muscles, that means you've been so disconnected with your body that it's not kicking in. I've been known to give my clients and patients bruises under their ribs because I really want them to fire. Here's a good giveaway is if you can palpate with your fingers underneath your rib cage and it's so soft that you can feel like inside your organs, like on the left side, it's the stomach, like you can really palpate, like go sink into your abdomen because it's so soft. That means TA is not firing. How you know it's firing is that when it kicks your fingers out, that the rib cage now becomes flush with the TA so much that you know that that's active. Okay, I'm showing you the natural physiologic pranic force here with the breath into the lungs to create this somatic contraction here, and how the aponic force also in the pelvis is shifting and creating that movement. Because this whole area works together, right? But eventually, I want you to be so sound in your TA and your core multifidus and the pelvic floor and the diaphragm, so much so that you can be active. But this is how I show my patients in supine on their backs so that they can isolate learning all about their core. And exhale. Good. So I want you to keep your feet together and see if you can open up your knees as you inhale, tip your pelvis, and see if you can exhale, draw the knees together and posteriorly tilt your pelvis to create this nice contraction of your TA. Inhale, really arch your back and flare out your ribs, and exhale, pull them down. We're using the movement of our abductors and adductors to create awareness into our pelvic floor and really get more awareness through our core. Inhale and exhale. Inhale and exhale. Good. You did that. You got that. This time I'm going to use my arms. So, keeping your knees flat or feet flat on the floor, you're going to inhale up, arch your back. And as you exhale, you're going to pull the arms all the way down and pelvic floor or pelvic tilt back to create this nice contraction on the exhalation. I want you to sort of learn to use the arms and the extremities, the hips we used earlier, and arms now to really get to know your core in this way with the breath. Inhale and exhale. Pull the shoulders down and away. And inhale. And exhale. If done right, you should be feeling a good, solid core contraction, enough to where you'll feel this tomorrow. Exhale. So the way I'm tipping so rotating or tilting your pelvis up with the inhalation, you see how that lengthens our abdominal cavity in this pranic region and the somatic region to really create room there. And then upon exhalation, it closes down, right? To create this pelvic tilt back. All I'm doing is like really exaggerating this movement so that you can learn the physiological pull of your inhalation to create this awareness into the core using your breath. Because it's super helpful to learn it this way. So I want to invite you to keep doing that, but this time I'm just going to do one more thing with the weight bearing through my feet so that you guys understand the involvement with your legs by elevating into a bridge, but I'm going to do it by articulating my core or articulating my spinal column one by one, segmentally, so that you can really get to know your core. I'm going to pull my shirt up so you guys can sort of see what I mean. So inhale, tilt. Exhale, tuck, 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 tuck. Once you do that, keep peeling up. And you see how hollow my abs are, right? When my core is active, it really cinches in my waist to where it's like a corset from the inside. When you're up here, be mindful of your alignment, which you'll get more of tomorrow, but I want you to press down that the knees are not veering out, but keep it in. Okay, inhale here and exhale. So I want you to really see if you can pull the thoracic spine down, keep the pelvis up, keep the pelvis up, keep the pelvis up, keep the pelvis up, and roll it down, roll it down, roll it down, one spine down at a time. Inhale. My patients love this if done properly. If you have a difficult time engaging with your legs to keep it straight, I recommend you keep a pillow between your knees, but thick enough pillow to where you can push in to hold it between, to turn on the adductors to keep engagement of your core. That helps a lot. Okay, inhale and exhale, tuck and scoop, and I'm pulling up, tailbone first, lift, right? Hollowing of my abs and lifting, 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 lifting. And I'm gonna inhale again and exhale. I want you to understand how my belly is not pooching, but it's really cinching down and in to create this nice massage for my spine. Exhale. And that allows me to really get my multifidi to fire in the back and really get my TA to fire in a responsible way to allow for this segmental mobility, which is super great for my spine as well. Okay, so that's something I want you guys to practice. Now I'm gonna get up, so always moving out of your pose, go lay down to the left or right, and then push yourself up. That's super important to keep your spine safe. Okay, so now I want to talk to you about standing. So I want you guys to know that there's a lot of tucking of the pelvis, right? A lot of people walk around hanging on their bones. So hips are forward and we're sort of this way. When you're that way, my glutes don't fire. They're completely lax. There's really no activation of our muscles, not even my core. Right? So I want you to understand that there's this nice curvature of our core or in our lumbar spine, and then there's a rounding curve in my thoracic spine, and then there's that rounding curve again, similar to the lumbar spine in my cervical spine. So lumbar sacrum goes this way, right? And then there's this nice lordotic curvature, and then kyphosis making an S, and then again a slight lordotic curvature in my neck. So maintaining that, I want you to see if you can pull the rib cage down without having it flare out. Right? Because a lot of the times of what we do is when I say stand up tall, or our mother tells us stand up tall, better posture, people want to flare out their ribs and pull the shoulders back. But that creates a lot of compression back here because there's no core engagement, right? So what I'm going to lift up my shirt again. So what I want you guys to remember is pull the rib cage down, okay? And as you do that, I want you to feel a lift. Pull the shoulders down and back. And when you do that, like, okay, this is a cue that I use a lot. Right shoulder blade into the left jean pocket. Left shoulder blade into the right jean pocket. And when you do that, pull the arms down that way. Pull the rib cage down. You should feel the navel going into the spine and feeling this nice tautness under the rib. Okay, so there shouldn't be any flaring out of the ribs because that's what we see a lot in yoga, right? We thrust things forward without really having stability. That's what I'm really trying to teach you guys today. So I want you to sink your hips down. In order for you to sink your hips down safely, maintaining your lumbar curvature, I want you to really scooch your bottom back toward the back, right? When you do that, there's this compressive force. So I always say, tuck your tailbone slightly under. And when you do that, you should be able to pull the navel to the spine. But when you do that, here's another catch. I want you to be able to pull the thoracic spine down. When you do that, avoid the shoulders coming back. Pull the shoulders down and back. And this is something you really must learn. It's really hard, you guys. Pull the rib cages down. Tuck your tailbone slightly down, elongating this curvature, but not tucking all the way, but making sure that the tailbone slightly goes out to honor the lordotic curvature without thrusting your rib cages forward. Because what happens is when we do this, we tend to do this. So this is an exaggeration, but pull the rib cage down and pull the shoulders down, shoulders back and down, and that's the hard part. And then tuck your tailbone slightly down to elongate the spine, protected from the front and the back. Okay? And then stand nice and tall. And when you stand, I don't want you to be butt tuckers. I want you guys to have nice curvature, drawing the navel to the spine, tucking your tailbone slightly long. And when you have the core properly engaged, guess what? It should have a decompressive force that pulls you up toward the ceiling. It fixes pretty much all the issues in all our joints. When this is nice and taut and it's activated in everything that we do, when we stand and when we walk, we're lighter on our feet because this heaviest part, the aponic region, is the heaviest part of our body, right? That's drawing up toward the ceiling. Remember, the hip joint and the lower part of your pelvis is rooting down. Navel to the crown of the head is pulling up. So when you stand, I want you to stand with the ribs drawn down, right? Respecting your lumbar curvature, really pull this down. Tuck your tailbone slightly down, and when you get this connection, then you're able to maintain this through everything that you do. So you no longer thrust yourself forward to get the flexibility without stability. And we want to be able to get strength from our stability so that we keep our body nice and flexible and mobile enough to know where our center line is, to draw and direct the force appropriately, to always move at a mechanical advantage using the laws of physics to support us against the gravitational force that's always pulling us down. Last thing I'll leave you with is, I want you to remember, as opposed to standing, when we're seated on our sit bones, our lumbar curvature should be respected. A lot of the times, we're this way, even in yoga. So I want you to really understand and use the breath work to really engage with your core to draw the pelvis forward, to create this nice symmetry on the front chain as well as the back chain that pulls us up. Because the fact is, the compressive force on our lumbar spine, I forget, it's probably 300% more load on your spine than when you're standing. So it bears to really pay attention because we're seated. I'm seated all the time. So I know one of our yoga directors, Gina Hermanson, recently did a chair exercise. We should tag it here, where she taught you how to engage with your lower abs in a seated position so that the load, the gravitational force into the spine is not so much that you always have this pulling up effect in all that you do. Yogic practice should flow over into all areas of our life, not just when we're on the mat. We talked a lot about the physical aspects of yoga today. But for those of you who are really intrigued with the spiritual side, the esoteric side of both Kundalini, trauma yoga, psychosomatic, all the things that yoga has to offer, you need to know how to keep your physical body safe, and that does require you to understand anatomical principles and ways to keep this physical body so well that you can create room for the mind to take seat in your body. That's really the essence of yoga. Even in Yoga Nidra, we do a lot of physical motions to quiet the body, to allow the kinks and the energy channels to flow so that when we sit into our meditative force or meditation, that we can be free from discomfort from our physical body, that we can tune in to that higher level vibration that's available to all of us. So that's what this is all about. We always want to be channeling things in. We want to create movement of energy, hopefully healing energy at that in all that we do. I hope this was super helpful for you guys. And so I just wanted to make sure that you guys understand that the 4 muscles of the body, of the core, I think as yoga instructors, that's something that is missing in all the yogic teachings, and I wish that you guys totally have that to cue your students so that they can better prepare themselves for success in their practice. Don't be that yoga instructor who causes injury. And sometimes they'll feel good for a long time until it doesn't. Remember the concept with repetitive injury, right? Thank you for watching. Your time is valuable to me, and I appreciate you being here. If you found my videos helpful, I put out weekly videos for you so that you can benefit from it. So I would love it if you subscribed, as well as comment, review me, follow me on social at Instagram, YouTube, as well as TikTok at Dr. Connie Chung. I'd love to hear from you. DM me, comment below, and let's connect. I'll see you guys all later.